But at the same time, so we have a variety of direct services we provide to low-income people, but from the day that Crossroads was set up, we also had this idea that we could not, it wasn't good to simply provide services to the poor if at the same time we were consenting to unjust policies that made them poor. And didn't just make them poor, but made them suffer because of their poverty in ways that are completely preventable. And so, I mean, at this time we have to, we also have always had the idea that the best people to advocate for low-income people are low-income people. And so we've also always tried to do community organizing. And so at this time we have two community organizing projects. One is called the Coalition of Religious Communities, which brings together people from 18 different faith communities to work on issues that impact low-income Utahns. Then we also have the project that my first real job when I started working at Crossroads out of law school was to set this project up. And so I have, maybe, if that sounds like I'm a little too proud of what the members have done, that's, I'm sorry. But the Anti-Hunger Action Committee is a membership organization for food pantry clients work on issues that the members of the group have determined are important. When we first set up AHAC, our goal was to simplify the application process for the food stamp program. So we identified a series of problems. The food application was 12 pages long, and the questions were written by an attorney who was trying to confuse people. And some of them were insulting. Would you like help putting your children up for adoption was the one that people complained about the most. You're poor, you must not be able to take care of your kids, or want to, apparently. And then they were asking people every 3 months to submit documents, some of them embarrassing, going to your landlord every 3 months and getting a certificate saying that that your landlord would know is for applying for food stamps, going to your boss and asking for the same form every 3 months. So we came up with 5 ideas to reduce the paperwork and make it easier for people to get benefits. We presented them to the, and we did various things, and actually now every single one of our original ideas has been put into place. And I think part of how that happens, I think how a lot of what we do is about making the decision maker see the human face impacted by the policies they're making. It's in the event that really changed the food stamp stuff was we organized an event where we invited different people from the community to come and try to do a comparative process comparing the food stamp applications from different states. And we had 4 people complete the food stamp application from Texas, and 4 the one from Arizona, 4 the one from California, and 4 the one from Utah. And one of the people who was completing the Utah application was the director of the state food stamp program. Everybody completed the other applications within 10 minutes. She was on page 3 of her application. And pledged to make some changes, and to her credit, she did. But it was not just, the goal is to take, is to help people see the humans, that the policies they're implementing, the decisions they're making impact real people. And I think we've done some good work that way. I think we've sort of preserved a lot of the funding for our state Medicaid program, and we've done a series of protests around funding for Medicaid dental benefits. With the current budget crisis, I think we lost those for the foreseeable future in this past legislative session, but they were cut for 3 years and they were restored for 2 years, and it was because of the work that the members of the group did. And you say, well, how important are dental benefits? Well, if you can't afford to go to the dentist, they're really important. I know people who went to the emergency room because they couldn't afford dental care, and the thing that was sad is they go to the emergency room, the doctors at the emergency room would inject them with antibiotics until the circumstances and the rest of their body stabilized, and then they'd send them home. They wouldn't treat the teeth. They'd just stabilize the rest of their body and send them home. And I mean, this is, you know, and explaining that to the people who decide what gets funded, in better budget years, we were able to get those services restored. And I think, you know, it wasn't, if it had just been me, being the guy who went to law school and is a really smart advocate, it never would have happened. It was the fact that the members, the people directly impacted, were talking to people face to face. So I guess, I mean, that's what I do. And so I come to the question of when is civil disobedience important, because I see civil disobedience as being one of the range of techniques that people I work with can and have used to show, force people making decisions to see the human impact and the human face that they are impacting. That being said, I mean, I think that one of the things that worries me, I mean, I think when people look at civil disobedience in Utah, either they say, you know, that type of confrontational technique doesn't work here, which I think is based on cynicism. And I think a lot of times it's really, I think some of the cynicism is really specific. I mean, I think when I hear people say that in Utah, what I actually hear them saying is that Mormons don't really have the same human nature as everyone else, that they don't respond to shame, that they don't have compassion. And I think, and so I mean, I find that kind of troubling, because if you assume that, well, most of the legislators are Mormons and they don't have the same human nature as everyone else, there's no point in confronting them. Well, I don't think my experience is that's not true. But on the other hand, there are people who have identified civil disobedience as the end-all technique. It's the ultimate technique, and you can read little books on exactly how to do it. And the thing that's sad about that is that you can't necessarily convince the police to arrest you. No, I mean, when I was first preparing for this event, you know, I read this article about these wonderful people protesting the war in Afghanistan in D.C., and they were all exasperated at the end of the day because they just couldn't get the police to arrest anyone. You know, and so I think, you know, you're just, when you turn a technique, when you forget that when you try to turn a technique into the true path, you have the risk of not making a difference. I mean, you have to ask yourself, I mean, let's say you do succeed in getting arrested, but the media doesn't care because they don't. I mean, because that's the other thing. Would you have made a bigger impact spending your time in jail, knocking on doors in your community, explaining why your issue matters? I mean, you're willing to spend the time in jail, why don't you instead take 2 weeks off work and see how many doors you can knock on and share your message with people, instead of hoping that the media will pay attention to your noble act. So I guess, I mean, which is, you know, for me, I think it's one of the techniques. I mean, I guess the other thing I say is that you can't, there are times when you don't want the police to arrest you, and they still will try. I mean, you know, one of the members of the Anti-Interaction Committee, one of our victories of sorts is that you could actually hand out leaflets at the state capitol. And the reason you can do that is because they set up rules saying you can't. We went up there, they tried to enforce those rules, we sued the state, and now they've got different rules because, you know, the U.S. Constitution does apply in Utah. You can hand out leaflets, but, you know, I mean, and so was that civil disobedience? I mean, I guess it was. There was a rule and we broke it, but there was I mean, we knew the Constitution was on our side, so I don't know that we thought we were breaking the law. And I guess, I mean, you know, and that's, I mean, I'm thinking about this because on Wednesday, you know, we have a new governor, and it's hard to say how his staff is going to